Good evening once again, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Bigfoot, the news show that scours the internet and the Bigfoot community each and every week so you don't have to. Then we take it and wrap it up in a nice, neat 30-minute package. If it has to do with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, or the Wildman, we'll fill you in and let you know right where to find it. So buckle up for the fastest 30 minutes in the cryptid world, folks. It's another edition of This Week in Bigfoot.
What are you repeating?
With someone or something crawling around out here. Get somebody out there.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know. He's all black, he's big. He is big.
Our lead story tonight is science turning into Bigfoot in order to keep tabs on black bears. Floe Foxon, a data analyst, thinks so. Foxon, a data scientist out of Maryland, has been comparing the number of bears living in parts of North America with the number of Bigfoot sightings over the years and suggests that there is a connection. In a preprint paper posted on the bioarchive, Foxon built on past research comparing Bigfoot sightings with bear sightings in the Pacific Northwest to include all of the continental United States and Canada. Earlier studies only looked at the number of Bigfoot sightings in parts of the Pacific Northwest, which is where most Bigfoot sightings occur compared to bear populations, and found what they can only describe as a strong connection. The study involved breaking down both countries into states or provinces while factoring in such things as human population, forest cover, and the presence of other wildlife. Next, the areas of bear density populations were charted onto a map, followed by published BFRO reports of Bigfoot sightings. Foxon found many more instances of Bigfoot sightings in clusters where bears were known to live compared to the places where there are few or no bears. The evidence strongly suggests that most, if not all, Bigfoot sightings are actually people catching a glimpse of a wild black bear in nature. There are, however, a few states where their math doesn't add up. To help me illustrate that, I've asked my gal pal Piper to give us a hand. Piper?
Well, Texas doesn't have a very big bear population, especially not black bears. Same goes for Florida. It's not a state where they have lots of black bears. So how would a black bear sighting account for a Bigfoot sighting if there are very few black bears? Intriguing question. So maybe, just maybe, some of the, Bigfoot sightings are actually, black bears. But in other states in the United States, such as Texas and Florida, Mr. Foxon says, the data analysts, that it might be accounted for some other things. Maybe animals or maybe people. I mean, that must be one hairy person.
Foxon's analysis shows that those living in areas with higher bear populations are much more likely to spot a Bigfoot roaming in the woods. When asked to comment, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum stated that it was feasible for a flash of fur and an upright standing figure to be mistaken for Bigfoot. Meldrum, who holds tenure at Idaho State University, wasn't involved in the research, but called it extremely preliminary. Meldrum also added that the reverse could be true as well, that genuine Bigfoot sightings are being dismissed as the North American black bear. And while science currently lands firmly on the legend of Bigfoot being a bear taking a walk on its back legs or some other known animal, many people still believe in the creature and what it represents about the yet-to-be-discovered world we live in. Next up, some rather strange sounds captured out in Tennessee may not be adding up. Mike Luci has this story.
If your social media timelines are filled with Bigfoot-related posts, you may have recently seen this footage. Posted on Instagram by Cryptid University, the footage was allegedly taken somewhere in Tennessee. Since being posted on Instagram back in January, the video garnered over 3 million views, plus thousands of shares and comments. If you haven't seen this video, then maybe the sounds in it at least seem a little familiar, and that's probably the case. The alleged vocalizations originally came from a YouTube video posted back in 2013. The YouTuber went by the name Jimmy Dillard, who claimed he captured these vocals while in Georgia. We're going to roll parts of this footage containing each of the screams you hear in the Cryptid University video. Basically, the Tennessee video reused all 4 vocalizations from the original 2013 footage, and in the same order no less, but shrunk the time gaps in between each one. And this isn't even where our story ends. Mr. Dillard claimed he captured those screams while trying to film deer with a camera he set up in some woods. While all signs pointed to those so-called screams coming from Squatch, it turns out those so-called screaming sounds came from something entirely different. After posting the original footage on his YouTube channel in 2019, Power Breakdown host Phil Poling added a new follow-up video that reveals the apparent culprit.
You see, what Mr. Dillard did was to gather some bird sounds, slow them way down, and then add them to this video that already had its own soundtrack. Now you can go through every one of these and match them up perfectly with the slowed down version, and in each case you can easily hear that it's just birds and nothing more.
In essence, what we have here is a video hoax that was basically stolen from another video hoax. Now, we're not saying that Cryptid You made this video, but it's worth noting these vocals have been used in several other video hoaxes that circulated social media. So while this isn't the first time these fraudulent Bigfoot screams were recycled, it likely will not be the last.
The Patterson-Gimlin film has withstood the test of time. It's managed to hold up to scientific scrutiny, skeptical mudslinging, and an hour-long National Geographic special. All seemed good for Bigfoot believers throughout North America, and Bob Gimlin's honest cowboy grin was intact. That was until it ran headfirst into Sam Gorski, Nico Puringer, and Ren Weichman, otherwise known as the CORIDOOR crew, a team of visual effects artists out of Los Angeles. The 3 millennials sat down to put their collective VFX brains together to see if they could debunk some of today's most impressive Bigfoot claims. Now, for those hardcore believers out there watching right now, you may want to step away. This is going to be painful.
It's debunking time. The bunking bros are back.
Yeah, those look like souls of...
They look like boots or something like that. I think that's the thing that's giving it away right now. He's nude, right? This is a nude Bigfoot. So theoretically, we'd be seeing some sort of feet here, but it appears more like there's boots on or something.
Yeah, there's like a
that.
white stripe and a dark stripe at the bottom of his foot there.
It feels very art directed by somebody with a gorilla costume, you know?
Dude, is it straight up just like a costume from Planet of the Apes that they got on 1960s eBay and then made a Super 8 film with it?
Something that's clearly physically not human, as in too tall, bone structure's too different, you know, something like outside of like just being furry. You squint your eyes, the silhouette, the skeleton that's driving this thing, like that needs to be different than a human being. When you have like dogs, like people wearing dog costumes, like the velociraptors, you know, from like Jurassic Park, like those costumes, they're trying to hide a human's anatomy in the anatomy of something else. But once again, if you look closely, you can trace where a human could be in that, you know?
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to like see something where if you trace it, there's nowhere a human could be in it.
Dude, reverse knees? Can't fake that.
Yeah, reverse knees.
Or just demonstrating like superior strength. Like if he picked up that log there and threw it, I'd be like, that costume can't do that.
Or if he moved in just like a non-casual walk. Something that's not human, right? If everything is human outside of just it being potentially furry, it's like, well, you can chalk it up to being a costume, and that's the simpler of explanations. Therefore, Occam's razor, therefore fake. Therefore, I'm inclined to believe the likely explanation of it being a person in a costume, and not the 1 in a bajillion chance that it's a new species of ape that's in Mississippi.
Yeah, you would be able to hear a giant, oh my God, that's a guy. That's like the least Bigfoot looking silhouette I think we've seen so far.
Well, there it is. Like it or trash it, you got to admit that those 3 guys know their stuff and make a lot of sense. But the one thing we can all agree on is the Todd Standing video was ridiculous. Up next, Bigfoot might not be the only one walking around with a mid-tarsal break. Mike Luci has this story.
A 2013 study published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology revealed something very interesting that barely gets talked about in this field. Some humans actually have a mid-tarsal break. Researchers observed 400 adults walking barefoot around the Boston Museum of Science, during which they learned that 8% of participants contained a mid-tarsal break. Moreover, these same individuals also made plantar pressure signatures, which measure which pressure is applied on your foot while walking, that were only previously found in ape footprints. Quality that's synonymous with purported Bigfoot tracks, the mid-tarsal break is a bendable joint in the middle of our feet. While this joint is accessible to primates, most human feet have stiff ligaments that prevent it from bending. The study also found that people who possessed a metarsal break also had flatter feet and tended to have a higher body mass index. Although the metarsal break was obvious to researchers, it was neither noticed by nor did it impede any of the participants' ability to walk. Researchers debated over deeming these findings as a long-standing tie to humanity's distant past or a morphing effect caused by our footwear. Even if it turns out to be caused by the latter, it still speaks volumes that this part of our bodies responded to these effects of footwear by reverting back to this prehistoric quality. This study can definitely hold a clue to potentially unraveling this Bigfoot mystery, depending on how it's interpreted. The Bigfoot camp might argue this information gives credence to the metarsal breaks alleged Squatch prints have had that are touted as one of their distinguishable qualities. Skeptics will probably say this information makes it all the more likely that many alleged Bigfoot tracks out there, even ones containing a metarsal break, were in fact made by humans.
Today's episode of This Week in Bigfoot is sponsored by Got Knockers Apparel and Clothing. From hoodies and caps to soaps, keychains, and bats, Got Knockers has everything you need to show your love of Bigfoot. For more information and to shop their items, be sure to visit the Got Knockers page on Facebook at facebook.com/Got Knockers. Hey, Got Knockers? It's that time again where we give content creator Mike Merchant, aka Snowwalker Prime, screen time to speak his mind and get whatever's bothering him off his chest. We call it 2 Minutes With.
It's funny, those that provide nothing demand so much. Recently, a skeptic claiming that the researchers were just rhetoric. Bigfoot researchers just have rhetoric. It's a bunch of rhetoric, a bunch of talking. Come in here and debate with me. You're not gonna like it, because I'm gonna ask the hard questions. You know, it's funny, because the researchers have evidence. They have footprint casts, they have vocalizations. Some people actually have video or photographs of the great beast. All the skeptics have is disgruntled rhetoric. That's all they have. They don't provide any evidence. They won't even provide evidence to support this notion that the eyewitnesses are not credible. They won't provide the information because they can't, because the peer-reviewed material doesn't support their narrative. Why would I debate with somebody that's done nothing? You've done nothing that I can see. Why would I debate with you? What is there to debate? I've spent 10 years and thousands of hours researching. I have over 1,000 videos. I have footprint casts. I have documentation. I've had vocals and rock bashing that's been analyzed by sound experts. What purpose would me debating you serve? How is that going to move this forward? You know what would move this forward? If you got off your ass, got it out of the computer chair, stopped saying things were bullshit, making these quirky little comments, all superior and smug. It's invalid. Straw man argument, logical fallacy. Got your ass out of the chair, go out into the forest, look into this phenomenon. It's that simple. Take all this time that you're wasting, that you're spending debating people, trolling people, doing your little podcast. Go outside. Go outside. How hard is that? It's funny that the skeptics want us to provide more data when they won't even provide information to support their narrative, which they can get right on the internet. They can click right on the internet if it existed. If there was data to support their narrative, which there isn't. And it's funny, you can invest hours and hours calculating something. Someone will come along, I don't think those numbers are right. My gut tells me they're not right.
On the tech front, the 2023 CES trade show recently wrapped up in Vegas. And for those living in their parents' basements, CES stands for Consumer Electronics Show. It's pretty much the Comic-Con for advanced electronics the public's actually allowed to buy. One of the highlights of the 23 show in Vegas was drone technology. Surprise, surprise. And for those Bigfoot hunters out there placing all their eggs in the drone basket, Autel Robotics stepped up, and they stepped up big. Here's the Autel Robotics CES presentation video. Check it out. Just a couple of notes from this year's CES show. For those DJI fans out there, don't hold your breath. DJI was banned from the exhibition this year due to human rights abuses by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So don't expect any updates from DJI being available in the United States anytime soon. And for those researchers out there serious enough to be pricing the Evo Max 4T, systems start at just $9,000. Coming up, Mike Luci just might know the reason why most of us tend to lie. Mike?
A study conducted by researchers in London shed light on why people are more likely to believe and spread lies that they believe could one day come true. And some of their findings could pertain to certain aspects of Bigfoot ideology. The UK-based team learned that people tend to overlook politicians or job applicants who stretch the truth if they think what they say could potentially happen in the future. The researchers conducted multiple experiments where participants were read a variety of statements, some of which were completely false. The participants had to predict whether some of the statements could eventually happen. In one experiment, participants had to imagine a friend lying about possessing a certain skill on their resume. The results show that people who believed their friend could eventually develop that skill in the future were less likely to find the lie unethical. Another experiment had participants reflect on 6 false political statements, after which half the group had to predict how each statement could come true in the future. The study found that participants who imagined how the false statements could eventually become true were less likely to rate them as unethical. Additionally, people who shared the same political views as the false statement were more likely to find it less unethical. Moreover, people tend to spread lies on social media when they think the statements could become true, but only if they align with their political views. To summarize, the study revealed how people's imaginations affect political discord and their willingness to overlook misinformation. Those who believe in lies they think could become true in the future might be difficult to convince, since such propositions are impossible to fact-check. The study has a lot of equivalence to many of the Bigfoot phenomenon's fundamental beliefs and narratives. The proliferation of hoaxes is a textbook example of misinformation, and with the study in mind, should make you wonder how many are knowingly shared by people based on the premises the study examined. Moreover, the fact that Bigfoot's existence can be proven, but can never truly be disproven, will always be a lifeline for this phenomena that largely hinges on the belief its existence will one day be proven.
It's time to bring you up to speed on a couple of recent Bigfoot podcasts and Sasquatch live streams. First up, Subarctic Alaskan Sasquatch, 135 Oil Well Road, Nilchuk, Alaska. In this episode, host Fred Roll pulls his car over on the side of the highway and tells tales of Alaskan Bigfoot sightings. Let's roll it.
He's back there, he's looking around, and he notices what he perceives as a guy walking away from him across the trail at about 150 yards, and he's just kind of looking, and this figure turns and does the old right hand kind of up, not necessarily a wave, but just right hand up, kind of like an acknowledgement. And as Mark is watching, he puts his hand up, just friendly gesture in his opinion. Well, once that happens, this thing shifts quickly. In mere just split seconds, this thing comes through 4 feet of snow very quickly and covers about half the distance to within about 80 yards. And he's like, what the hell? He's transfixed on this, like, what the hell is this? And it dawns on him he has his binoculars, so he looks, and it's still in the shade and stuff, so it's basically silhouetted. He can't fully make out any features, but he could tell that it is massive and is covered in hair. And so he has a 40 cal under his fleece. He's in all black, and he's standing there, and so he's looking at this thing, and it's just glaring at him. He could feel it's just looking at him like, what's your move kind of deal. And this is going on for a couple minutes. So he's sitting there staring and just, kind of like, what the hell moments. And as he's taking the photos and whatnot, he hears behind him coming up the road, the chain on a trailer jingling as another vehicle is coming up the way. So as that starts happening, this thing crumples down. According to what Mark was saying, it crumples down almost like a face towards him, body out back behind him, almost like a bearskin rug would be laid out, almost like a puddle of mud looking on the snow, right? And this thing, there was this like a heat wave type of shimmer, I think is a bad word, but those kind of heat waves kind of things going on during this, and it starts morphing and mutating into a moose. And he said one of the things that really stood out was the face of the moose looked as if, you know, someone blasted it in the face, so it was distorted. It wasn't full on moose. You could tell it was distorted from what a moose would look like.
Tonight's edition of This Week in Bigfoot is sponsored by Broken Branch Designs. From outerwear and clothing to home and garden decor, Broken Branch Designs has everything to do with Sasquatch. For more information, visit brokenbranchdesignslllc.com. Next up, this show is fast becoming one of my favorites, Hairy Man Hoaxes and Hoodwinks, episode 67, The Romance and the Squatchin'. In this marathon 2-hour show, the panel of show hosts and content creators all get together to discuss what makes us all fall for the subject of Bigfoot. Let's check it out.
It just depends on what you want to believe in, I suppose.
Well, that's what it breaks down to, right, Nikki? It's like I said, that's what it breaks down to, right? You got the percentage of people, which is probably smaller, I think, in my opinion. You got the percentage of people who are interested in the actual real research of the thing, the real phenomenon, and then you got the people that are more interested in the clicks and the likes and the entertainment and all this, you know.
The stories, you know. There's
so many different clicks, if that's, you know, what you want to call it, because you have people who believe that they are not just flesh and blood, that they can freaking disappear into portals. And that takes a certain type of person to believe in that, because either they had some experience that they cannot explain.
Well, the Squatch Watchers are back. In this YouTube short, the gang from Hickory is asking opinions on a rock slide clip. Massive bipedal creature flees after rock slide down mountain. Let's take a look at it.
Did they disturb this creature by pushing these rocks down the mountain?
Hey, there's something down there. You see that in the clearing?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I actually slowed this thing down a bit and added some color correction, and I'll show it to you, and we'll see what you think.
Hey, there's something down there. You see that in the clearing?
Oh, yeah.
So what do you think that looks like? We'd love to hear your comments. You can email the show at thisweekinbigfootnewscast@gmail.com. Next up, my Bigfoot sighting. I gave those Sasquatch my fish. In this episode, an outdoorsman tells of his sighting while fishing in the wilds of northern Idaho. Let's roll this one.
When I was fishing, I had happened to turn, and about 25, 30 yards behind me, there was a Bigfoot peeking out from behind a tree. So I just stood there, kind of frozen in my tracks, watching it. Then I figured I don't want to spook it. I don't want to be any more spooked than I am. I'm just going to go ahead with my day. And, you know, if they start to get any kind of aggressive or anything more than just curious, I'm out of here. Because I was alone that day. I usually don't go and fish alone, but that day I did. So I kept going and kept fishing, and little did I know, but there were actually 3 of them there together. It looked like a dominant male or father and a mama and a juvenile. And I just kept watching them. They kept pretty good pace with me as I was walking down the stream and fishing. And I had sat down to eat some lunch, and I had these fish there. And I thought, I'm just going to leave these fish for them. So I set the fish, and I took them off the stringer and actually laid them out on the stump and walked down a ways where I could still see them. And sure enough, they came in and they ate those fish right away.
Batting cleanup today, the Confessionals podcast, episode 45, Bigfoot in Broad Daylight. In this 1 hour, 28 minute show, guest Dave Groves joins Confessionals to share a detailed close-up Bigfoot encounter he had while riding the ATV trails in the Allegheny National Forest, a spot not far from where Sean Wagner and I captured some rather impressive howls. Check it out.
Looked over at its hand before I got up to its head. Its arm moved, like it bent its hand in front of it. And to me, I remember thinking, I thought whatever it was, its arm was broke, because the bottom part of its arm was extremely lot longer than the top part. You can see the elbow. You can see where the bottom part was really long. And I've asked people on another interview I did, let me know if you've seen that. I've never heard anybody say that before, but I distinctly remember that. And but it froze at that point. It just stood there and stared at me. And I'm telling you, Tony, when I made up my eyes, my vision up towards its face, I couldn't see the detail of its face, like all the lines. I could tell that, this thing was covered in black hair, was probably, I could guess 7.5, 8 foot tall maybe, and the only way I had to judge was because of the grass it was standing in. The area was like a grassy little field I pulled into 30, maybe 10 feet, 20 feet off from the tree line. And that's where it was standing. And I had to drive right past this thing when I come in, and I didn't see it, or maybe I thought it was a tree, I don't know. But as it stood there, it just froze, and that's what I did. I froze, and the shock didn't hit me yet. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck, it's a guy, it's a bear, it's none of that. It's totally obvious that it's none of that. It's 70 feet with no trees between you. And it started occurring to me, I think I know what this is turning out to be. And right about the time that I would think I was starting to panic a little bit. I don't know what I would have done if it would have lasted any longer, but it started slowly moving backwards. And it probably took 2 or 3 steps into the wood line, and I was on the ATV and gone, and it was gone, and that's when I panicked. I literally pretty much lost function. I'm freaking out, thinking, what's coming up behind me?
With Bigfoot conferences in full swing, there's only one guy we can turn to keep us informed on the who's, the what's, and the where's. It's Chuck Larson, and he has a pair of great shows for this week's Spotlight.
On Saturday, April 22nd, Bigfoot fans will converge on Ocala's World Equestrian Center for the Great Florida Bigfoot Conference. This Bigfoot celebration and research project is returning to Central Florida for a 3rd year. The conference features an all-star lineup of Bigfoot researchers, investigators, and authors, ready to interact with fans and discuss their experiences and findings. Doors open at 9 and the event runs until 6. Tickets include access to an interactive Q&A with all of the day's speakers. A meet and greet dinner for Friday, April 21st is scheduled for all VIP ticket holders in the first 4 rows. For more information and tickets, be sure to visit GatherUpEvents.com. Moving on, the first annual Great Orlando Skunk Ape Conference featuring Dave Shealy is also scheduled for April 22nd at the Dirty Laundry Music Venue, 1036 North Mills Avenue, Orlando, Florida. Tickets for this punk rock style event are only $8, and doors open at 7 p.m. Live music with Tooth and the Enamel's Johnny Depp, and more. For more information, search Great Orlando Skunk Ape on Facebook. And that's this week's Conference Spotlight.
Well, that's it for us this week, folks. It looks like we're all out of time. I'd like to thank you for watching and remind you, if you have any questions or comments, you can let us know at thisweekinbigfootnewscast@gmail.com. For Mike Luci and Chuck Larson, I'm Brendon Brown, reminding you that when it comes to Bigfoot news, be informed, not biased. Take care.